Horror Hour.
We all go a little mad. Forget you.
Here's Johnny.
All right, so hello and welcome to the Horror Hour. It's the place we discuss, we debate, we disagree on all things horror. But today I'm really excited. Well, as usual, I'm your co-host, Yutaka, and I'm joined by Haley Bishop, writer, director, and actor, and producer, I think, on Sinphony.
So many hats.
I know. So welcome. How are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
I am great. It's so nice to get to talk to you again, especially about Forever Young, because you played on a lot of my fears, everyone's, I think, growing older, but also you added some really good comedy into this too, that some of the dialogue is just so good. And so for everyone, if you haven't watched Sinphony, because we've talked about it a lot, we are going to get into some spoilers, so just letting you know for now. So first off, where did the inspiration for Forever Young come from?
So I wrote Forever Young initially during the pandemic, and it was, I think, so this would have been like early 2020, when TikTok was kind of starting to, it was around, but it was really starting to take off, especially when everyone was bored. And it kind of came out of a little inspiration of seeing a lot of my friends who are, late 20s, early 30s on TikTok suddenly trying to do all these dances, and it was just a thing where I thought they just looked a bit ridiculous as you see these teenagers doing it, and even the teenagers doing it, you'd still be like, these are very subpar dance moves. Like nobody's impressed. It's basically, essentially, it's just the Macarena. But then to see my friends who have like children and stuff, and I was very judgmental of them. I'm not saying that I'm in the right here, but I just thought it would be really funny if there was some sort of punishment for doing these above the age of 30. And then I had to write essentially like a 2-minute version of this script for a different horror competition. And so just quickly, that's where like it came out of, was just me being a super judgmental of my friends, which I don't recommend, but it worked out okay.
Well, I do have to ask then, did they have they seen this segment?
There, I don't think actually a ton of them have yet, because since Sinphony has just come out,
Okay.
it's like one I've like talked about it and tried to get everybody to watch, but so many of my friends are not horror fans. They get really scared. You've got everybody's like, I want to see your movie, but I'm too afraid to watch horror. So I'm like, okay, well, I could say mine's more comedy than horror, I think, but the Sinphony as a whole is obviously horror. So yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if they'd know too that I was taking the piss out of them specifically. So
yeah.
Now.
Well, and I will say though, while yours may be more comedic, there was one good like jump scare that really, well, two, because the last one was more comedic, but when you pulled out the flip phone, I was just like, oh, that got me. I was like, that got me in the heart. Oh my goodness, that took me back.
Different type of fear.
Yeah. But the other thing though is one of the things that I do love about Sinphony is the constant theme of that song going throughout everyone's segment. And I do remember in the interview too, everyone really enjoyed obviously how yours played in to yours, because it was more poppy and more just when I guess with the TikTok teams or theme.
I would say I gave the composer, when I was actually really excited when they said that was the through line, that we needed to put a song in, and I was like, I got it. It can be the song they dance to. And I think I sent the composer like a couple of references where it was like kind of a Latin pop version of a popular song, so that it was like you could dance easy to it. But it didn't necessarily have to make sense. I love it.
No, it's great. Jason was joking, like he was like, what if we did a soundtrack or a vinyl or like some type of merch? I go, I would buy that, That would just be really cool. Like, I'm sold.
I keep saying they need to make a Spotify playlist of all the songs because I think they're actually all really good. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple, like Kimmy's is amazing, this like kind of old, like belty ballad, and then Greg's got like a country version. Like, there's so many good versions of it that I would listen to, you kind of want to listen to them all.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And I mean, again, really enjoy Symphony as a whole. And I think that that little added element is just fun because one of the great things also about Symphony is we get to see everybody's take on horror because there's so much
Mm.
different type of subgenres out there. Um, when it came for making Forever Young, did you know that also you were then going to also act within it as well?
Yes, I'm an actor kind of first and foremost, and I've been an actor now for I think almost 10 years. So that was always like I usually write projects and short films and things with myself in mind to play the characters. Essentially, I'm just writing characters that I want to play because
Okay.
as an actor, you don't always get a say. Well, you never really get a say. You audition for whatever is given to you.
True.
So you don't always get to pick the characters you want until you know your massive, huge level, like the Jennifer Lawrences of the world. Um, so I wrote Forever Young with the intention of playing the lead because I just thought, oh, this is great. I get to make a character who's a little bit horrible and just kind of a jerk and like and then also expressing all like the insecurities I had, around turning 30 and whatnot. So yeah, it's definitely always very selfishly so I can just play.
Well, I loved that intro though, or as we're beginning with your segment and just walking through the crowd of people, and each time she's speaking with them, she's like, "Ugh." And I'm like, I kind of feel like that's me at times, but okay, I get how that comes across now.
We you know what I think it's nice is that you are equally her and the people at her party where I now stop myself constantly when I'm with my friends and we are talking about like mortgages and like inflation has gone up and like we had a conversation about like air quality once and I just went, oh, we're here. Okay, let's just embrace, and you just kind of go like, I recognize and accept that I am interested in this topic, but younger me would have just thought, you're so boring. What are you doing? So I like it. I think that makes it relatable for everybody because it isn't like she's the extreme, like she refusing to grow up, but we all kind of have to have one leg in wanting to feel young and one leg in wanting to buy a nice rug.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the great things also that I really enjoyed though is actually the dance sequence too. With her, Lauren just being blissfully unaware, I would like to say, as the monster is also creeping up. And so I'm curious. Now I am hoping. So are you also doing or pitching a feature for this?
I am. I have I've got been writing the feature, so I'm working on it currently. I was writing right before we got on our call actually. So this is the perfect kind of like take a break from the script, kind of talk about why I liked the film and then get back into making the feature version. But yes, and there will be more dancing in the feature.
Well, I mean, I'm excited to hear that. Everyone that I've been chatting with has been talking about, they're working on their feature, and this is certainly one I would love to see as well. Just because, again, I remember when was getting to, that this was almost a decade ago, but turning 30, I was just like, oh my gosh! And in our friend group, we already had one person who did it, and he would constantly like just joke with us. And now, as we approach 40, we're like, I don't know if we're gonna do this, y'all. So instead, we're just gonna go to the Dominican and pretend like we're 21 again. So we'll see
Yeah.
how that goes.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll be right there, like sign me up. I'll meet you there. Like it is one I do think it's nice that because it's about millennials and that spans a greater time period, but I think it's also just a very relatable of aging thing. So whether you're turning 30, 40, 50, 60, like you can go on and so forth. It has still like we always have that fear of hitting a milestone in life or you just getting older because we've all been conditioned that somehow that's wrong until you're like 70 and you're like, oh wait, I don't care anymore. Like
That's true.
yeah. So I think it's nice to be that I'm really glad to hear that it is hitting all kind of ages of being like, oh, I either remember that feeling or I'm still in it, or
Yeah.
the next decade is just going to bring the same amount of fear. So maybe I'll do the sequel of Forever Young one day, will be Forever 40 or like 50. Like every decade I'll just make the version of it.
I have to ask because you added some really great pop culture references, and so when Lauren obviously does the dance and now has, is kind of permanently stuck, I really enjoyed the back and forth with her and the two girls when the low-rise jeans comment
Mhm.
sent me. I was just like, oh my God, that is so. I was like, it's so true, but just the delivery, I was cackling at that.
Thank you. That I will say that is my real pride and joy of that line specifically about Brittany, was just one I was just kind of talking about the script with my partner, who's also my cinematographer, and improving a bit and trying to like think of funny things and just blurt it out. Like obviously, except for Brittany, everybody knows that, and I was like, oh, yes, it's like one of those moments you're like, yes, it's so true because she is the only one who's ever looked good in low-rise jeans, and like we all aspired to that, but then
Yes. I mean, it was a trend, but my gosh, I was laughing so hard. I was like, that was just genius.
it's also like
Um,
nobody comes for Britney Spears, you know, like we protect her with our lives.
exactly. Um, speaking of just your cinematographer, I really enjoyed the shots going throughout the house and through outside. So how was that filming?
Oh, so I mean, I'm so lucky that like Kieran Craig, who was my cinematographer, is also my partner because like it's rare that you get access to your DP 24/7, that you can constantly be discussing like ideas for the film. And like he was like, what if we do the opening is the Clockwork Orange, slow zoom track back, like here, he's the one who's coming up with interesting ways to shoot it based on the script and what he knows my vision is. And the one take going through the party is him trying to then light and guide it, and giving his kind of cinematic take on everything. So I mean, it's the best. Like it's so handy because we get to workshop things and kind of test them out in our house. And like our rehearsal period is just us at home on a Thursday night, being like, okay, let's use our iPhone and see what we can do and see if this works. And he'll send me references, and then I can say like, no, I don't like that or this or that. So it's I highly recommend you date your cinematographer if you're it works out really well.
So, another thing too, then, how much time did you have to get this all together?
So not long. I think in total from like the initial meeting I had with Sebastian and Michael from Screen Anthology was maybe like 4 or 5 weeks max to when we were actually shooting, because I was kind of later in the process coming into the, like everyone else from Sinphony kind of submitted scripts initially from this clubhouse room, whereas Judge Shepard messaged me and said, hey, you should submit your script. Sebastian is looking for scripts to fund. So I was a bit later in the process, so they were kind of like, can you turn it around in basically a month? We would need it back, right, we needed you shooting and then hopefully have it back and edited within like a couple months because the deadline is approaching. So it was very challenging to do it that way because 4 weeks is just not a lot of time to prep something, especially when you're on a smaller budget. But I luckily had Tim Wilrich, who is both mine and Mark Pritchard's producer, who is just amazing because he just was like ready to throw himself in and problem solve. And I think we started our little filmmaking romance there, where he's now, we like to say he's like our work wife for both Kieran and myself. So yeah, it was really fun. Normally something that quick could be quite stressful, but actually it was a really fun process to just kind of pull out this silly film, and try and figure out like all the fun nostalgia references and things we could find. But yeah, it was a quick turnaround.
And how was it getting to experience your film just in front of audiences?
Oh, that I think that was the nicest thing about being at the Brooklyn Horror Fest, because we did a screening last year. Like, so we were at Comic-Con on a panel, and then we had a private screening in LA with, friends and family. And it's nice seeing it with your friends and family and, like a crowd of people, but it's so different seeing it in Brooklyn when it was a crowd of people that don't know you, and you get real, like they have no reason to laugh other than if they like it or jump or be scared. And so actually seeing it with the packed house in Brooklyn was probably the best feeling and the best reward from making the film, because you do hear the reactions that are actually honest from people, and there was a lot of laughs watching my film, which, and the Britney line especially, was a huge cackle that I was just like, oh, my ego exploded that day, basically.
I mean, Sinphony was a hot property. The first screening sold out, and I remember speaking with the PR person. I was like, you can give my ticket, I'll get the second screening, because I want people to see it.
Yeah.
And so I was still happy that I was able to make the second screening and see it on the big screen, because I mean, yes, I've streamed it at home, of course, but there's just nothing sometimes better than being able to see this on the big screen. And I just also think with the song and the sound throughout just the film, it was just great to hear on the big speakers.
Yeah, it's so much nice. Also, just see, we shoot films so that they are on a movie screen, not just on like a phone. As filmmakers, so it's so rewarding and then to have people shoot it, because you're like, I've made this at a certain resolution to have the big,
Mm-hmm.
big scale and the colors, and like, it's everybody's hard work going in to that, from the sound mix to the color grade to the composer and all of that. I love seeing it come together. So I'm glad you got to see it on the big screen and not just on a computer or
I mean, I'll be honest, I saw it beforehand though too,
yeah,
but
I
that's
know.
how I already knew that. I was like, I need to see this on the big screen.
Yeah,
And so I told them, I was like, please, just as long as I was like, I will give up my ticket if there's another screening. They're like,
yeah,
there is. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
yeah.
Because it's just it was so good.
Thank
One thing then that I would love to know just about this process, because I could feel this when we were in the interview, is just you all seem like you've become a family of sorts. Like it felt very just warm, inviting, and like you all had just been friends for ages, the way you all interacted.
Oh, I feel so blessed that we, like, essentially we were all started out as strangers that were talking on Clubhouse, or, we had a couple of Zoom meetings from all different parts of, like the US and Canada and the UK. And within a very short period, we'd have Zoom calls with each other every, couple months to kind of update on the films. But it's the best support system of filmmakers. Everybody is just like, is always trying to look out for each other, and is um happy to support each other. And like Mark Pritchard, who lives now like an hour north of me, is like, I text him all the time to just, even like, we're cheerleading for each other. We want to see everybody succeed. And then when we actually got to meet in person, both in San Diego and then in New York again, it was like a family reunion. Like, it's a bunch of weird cousins that, so, like, you put us in a lineup, and you're like, I have no idea how these people are connected to each other, but I feel very protective of everybody now, where I'm like, don't mess with my family.
I love that. And I also think it's great that you all were given the opportunity, because I mean, again, I'm always happy when I'm introduced to talent that I'm not aware of. And that's one of the great things about Sinphony, is that there were just so many. I was like, wow, there are so many new voices. And one of the things too that I do have to bring up, because you're technically, one of the actors in officially the scariest, scientifically scariest film of all time, Host, which it is frightening when you think about when it came out, and then during the pandemic, and how we're all, we connect via Zoom now. Like that was, whew.
Oh, thank you. I'm very glad to hear that. It's nice that the Host still has like resonance. It wasn't just like a fluke that, like, oh yeah, it came out when we were still at home, and okay, that made it scary. And it's like, no, it's properly scary, and it is continuing, like it'll be scary for years, kind of a thing. But
Well, I mean, I don't mess around with Ouija boards or
Seances.
seances. That's just not some. Even though my co-host George is like, let's do that one time. I go, absolutely not. That's asking for trouble. Um, but I also love just hearing about the making of that, because you all had to do everything pretty much from behind the scenes, because it was still during, I think, lockdown as well for
Yeah.
you all.
Yeah, we shot it in May 2020, so it was not even like that far into lockdown even it when and I mean Host is just something I'm very very proud of, and still like you know, amazed at how that then translated into the world after making it, because when we were making it, it was just kind of like a fun project we're all going to make as friends. You know, the entire team involved with Host have been friends for years, and we all started just from, you know, the concept came out of just like our WhatsApp group hanging out. And Rob Savage, like I have known Rob since I basically moved to London.
Hmm.
We did a short film called Dawn of the Deaf like 7 years ago, I think now, and have just stayed friends. And Rob is like he's like, you know, I send him all my scripts and he gives me notes on everything. So he's a real cheerleader as well. But the process of filming Host it was equally super weird that there was no film crew. Like you had to be your own. You had to be, you know, your continuity. You had to be, you know, the script is improv. Like we didn't have anybody there in person, even just like having to do the lighting and make sure that you were pressing record and all those things. Like from an acting perspective, doing all of that suddenly was challenging, but then also really rewarding, because it just meant it was almost like a master class in like how to make a film and figuring things out and how to make things scary in your house. And I luckily again my partner was there to help kind of a bit with just some of my lighting and making sure I didn't mess up any of the transfers of footage. But then yeah, we were totally alone. We shot everything over Zoom. We like Rob was having to he could never come into our homes because it was still the only thing we got to do was they lifted the lockdown a tiny bit in London, where you could go like I think two people in your house if you had to for work. And so we had our stunt team from Lucky 13 Action came for two of the guys came so that I was able to do the pole and the stunt down my hallway. But other than that, it was just, you know, blacking out your windows and you by yourself on Zoom with everybody from the film.
And
So
it
it was
turned out, I mean, it really is like I always tell people the best way to watch it. They're like, why? So when I watch Host, I will either put it on my laptop as well to kind of get in the mood. But
yeah,
I will like sit really close, so it's like I'm on the Zoom as well, and
yeah,
the chills at times. I mean, it works, and I just think it's so inventive. And
thank you.
when I did hear about how you all had to do everything like that, I'm like, that's incredible. So,
Thank you.
kudos on that one.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one where I think it's nice to be reminded, like, while I hope I don't have to shoot another film on Zoom out of, you know, like I prefer, you know, I think we all prefer being on set and having the full team and all the departments with you. It is a real reminder that you can make things with very limited resources and just a bit more creativity when it comes to the story and how important story is, because you don't also necessarily always need the bells and the whistles and all the other things if you've got a good story to go off of. And they did well of kind of creating an interesting premise. And then but then I will say, like, Host was be not possible without our incredible editor, who took like I think like 700 hours of footage and or like something crazy, maybe not that much, that sounds, but she took essentially what was she had to chop and change and make a film out of seven, I think, five different performances, six different performances at a time. So Brenna is incredible. So it is a real like editing feat that I think she doesn't get enough credit for how much she contributed to making that look good.
That's insane. And it really does. Um so one of the things that I would like to know, just I know we all say like, oh, horror is really thriving this year, but truly, we've seen so much from either big budget or very low indie, like there's just been so much horror out there this year that I would love to know what was something that occurred throughout the genre that just made you happy, whether it's talent in front of or behind the camera, or just a new theme or a new look.
I think one thing this year that, at least I've noticed is there's been a real rise in female directed horror with, at least here in the UK, we had Rose Glass and we had, oh shoot, now her name has just popped out of my head. Oh, I've got her face. I'll think of her name, but she's got the Betty Bangs. I don't know if you,
Oh,
oh my gosh, it's going to drive me nuts now that I can't think of her
it's gonna
name,
drive
but
me nuts too. But
um, do you know who I mean?
I believe
Oh,
so, yes.
yeah.
Because I agree. There's been a huge rise, which is so great because there's so much untapped talent and stories. And yes,
Mhm.
we've had some really, I would say, just phenomenal direct female-led horror that we've just had. Like, one that comes to mind would also be Chloe Okuno's Watcher.
Mhm, mhm.
It's just gorgeous and
I was gonna
stunning,
say that, so
and
I'll have to check it out.
oh my god.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean one that I love because it's kind of campy, and I do love like all the color choices, but I also love that it's one of the rare horror films where I leave feeling like good about myself, which is odd. I'm like, all these people died, but I feel great. And
Yeah.
it's called Bingo Hell from Gigi Salguero.
Oh,
So
Gigi's great. I don't know it, but I'm gonna need to she's fantastic.
she is like a firecracker, and
Yeah.
I just adore her. But when I saw that, I go, why do I feel great about myself? This movie should not be making, this dude was just bludgeoned to death, but yeah, I feel great. So
Oh, good. I need to Go Bingo Hell?
it's just bingo hell.
Bingo Hell. I'm gonna
It's
look this up. Sounds amazing.
it's it's just, yeah, there, but yeah, I would agree. That's been one of my favorite things. To get to see more of a spotlight on that, since, obviously, sadly, it's a very male driven industry. So,
Which, like that's fine. I think that's nice too, is I think this year, like maybe it's even just a shift that like women in horror aren't necessarily there to just be like TNA or like their characters seem to be getting a lot more fleshed out. And then also I think there's been a real rise in just like indie horror getting its spotlight, whereas it's not just okay, well, yeah, you get the big guys that put out their stuff every year, but there seems to be a lot more room for new filmmakers or your Ari Astras who are coming out with a lot more interesting and a lot more, I think, horror films that seem to bridge the gap between like mainstream people who go see Marvel films, audiences like my extended family, and then the people who love and worship horror. There seems to be actually like it's bubbling to the surface where there's a lot more room for more people to join the party, essentially.
no, I agree. I love that. It's been just an incredible year. I think, like, also we're getting crazy performances. I mean, there's hope that Mia Goth gets something for Pearl, because that mono, or I mean, my gosh, that,
Mm-hmm. She's coming out
ridiculous.
as a nice new like screen queen, screen.
Her, yeah, and I think same thing with Jenna Ortega, just because she's also got Wednesday that just came out and Scream. But yeah, I think it's really good that we're finally getting to see just these new emerging talents, or we're just getting some incredible performances that I hope get recognized, because I do think that horror, sadly, is just very underrated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's looked at as, I think, to me, it takes more to scare somebody than it does to make them laugh. That's just me.
Well, and I also think that from a from an acting perspective, now having done a horror film, like that is the hardest amount of acting I've ever had to do, because having to be at that level of you're essentially, horror makes you, for actors in it, they're in the most extreme heightens of emotion, and you go from being like normal walking down your street to being the utmost terrified running for your life, and like that's a very hard jump to then, or like even just a scope to kind of cover in one movie. So I think horror actors don't get the same sort of credit they do, like when they're in a drama or they're in, a police something. It's like, actually, as an actor, it was exhausting doing host because your body's just like physically having to go through so much that you normally don't do in real life. So I hope, yeah, like the Mia Goths and people are starting to get more recognition for their performances than they have in the past.
No, I agree. I always wonder, like, what do you do to kind of come down from that heightened emotion? Like, do you, I've heard, I think one of the actors I spoke with, they're like, oh, I just go listen to true crime. I go, that's fascinating, but okay, yeah, I could see that.
I did when we were doing host. We didn't have a ton of options, but like just going for a walk and trying to like almost like get that movement into your body to almost like flesh it out, get your blood flowing to get rid of it. But then it's equally like so fun. So like you hit that peak of emotion, but it's almost like when you have a really good cry where it doesn't feel good during it, but afterwards you feel like you've been cleansed, or like you got rid of
That's
a
a good
lot
way
of
to,
purge
yeah.
things. So there is an element, I think, of doing like these kind of intense things that actually like it feels, and because the scene is fake. Like for me, watching all my friends die and host, while like it's easy to tap into that, it's horrible seeing Caroline's face smash against the keyboard.
Oh.
We call cut, and then she's just smiling and laughing at you. So, like there's an element that like you can pull yourself out pretty quickly because you do know like it's fake. Like I think from onset you can, you would see all the different, there's the cinematographer and the focus puller and the grip is standing in the background, and like you're in a very safe environment. Now I know Alfred Hitchcock actresses would not say the same.
True.
But nowadays it's such a safe environment that you can just like, I think, pull yourself out fairly quickly, or you just gotta go for a walk and have a nice cup of tea, wait for it to pass.
um One of the other things then too is, what are you hoping happens next with the genre? What would you like to see more of?
I would like to see, I think, because I kind of have a comedy horror, like a lot of the things I've written are comedy horror. I like the Jordan Peele, his Nope and Get Out and Us, and like how there's always a intertwining. So I think like I'd just like to see horror mixed with another genre a bit more, because I do think there's like it could be so much. You can kind of tap horror onto any other genre. And for me,
Hmm.
I really love comedy horror, and I don't actually think there's that many, but there's so many,
That's true.
I think, ways to tell terrifying tales, but with a bit of comedy involved. Because life, I think the nice thing is that like life is a good mix of both, and it's really easy
Yes.
to walk the line of like laughing and crying. They're kind of on the same plane, and so yeah, personally, I'd like to see more like bodies, 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 like that. Is like a nice. It's fun. It's still really funny, and then it taps into the terrifyingness. And you can go back and forth, and yeah, I think that's what I would like to go a little bit more.
I'm a huge fan of the genre, so I wouldn't mind seeing more comedy horror. I, when I hear bodies, 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 I keep thinking of Alice, because that character and that actress, phenomenal.
Oh yeah, so good.
Oh my gosh.
There's
Uh,
another very underrated performances that will probably go unnoticed, but like so good.
yeah, it kind of made the movie. I mean, the
Yeah,
movie was great, but you just kept gravitating toward that character, and yeah.
yeah.
I guess my last question then too is, what's next for Haley?
So right now is the feature. I think that's like my until I've got that draft kind of signed off, ready to go, feeling good. I'm just working on Forever Young. But then I have another short that I wrote in the around the same time actually as Forever Young, called Cute, which is another horror comedy that I'd love. That one I like would love to get made, or to work on that as a feature as well, because I think it has a really fun premise and could be another like just really kind of silly but still scary and quite hyper violent, but in like the fun way. Like it's violent, but it's like
Ooh.
silly violence, not like Saw violence, which I'm like, lols.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
I'm a gore hound. I will always, that's what I always gravitate to. But so when I hear that, I'm like, oh, that sounds great. But
Yeah.
I will say, you know, one of the great things about horror is just that either it can take you to like this fantastical realm, but also I do love how horror can also, I think horror is the best when it comes to trying to get important topics across as well, or makes you in a sense relate, because again, Forever Young, you tapped it. I was like, ooh, I know that. I was that. Yep, still probably am that, but okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that sounds, I hope that, oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah.
Definitely let you know when either the feature or the next one is coming out. So keep you in the loop for that. So if you liked Forever Young, I think you'll like the other ones too.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. It means a lot to us here on our channel and just to me, because I do love getting to speak with filmmakers and just about their projects. But again, Sinphony was fantastic, and Forever Young, again, I'm probably going to be quoting that Britney line forever because it's just, y'all, it's fantastic. So
That is
good.
the greatest form of flattery. Thank you so much. Thank you. So nice to talk to you again too. I know at the
Yes.
initial one it was so loud.
It was, but you know what? And I told everybody else too. I won't forget that interview just because I was nervous going in, because I was like, wow, I'm gonna have to speak with so many at one time. But it just felt, it was a blast. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. You all I could clearly gauge that there was just so much love and appreciation in the room, and how you all were just so proud of what you put out there. And so I really appreciate that, just as an audience member and as a fan. And so yeah, I will always remember that experience. So I'm bummed that I couldn't share that interview, but I'm so happy that it happened and that I could still reconnect with everybody to kind of follow up. So
Yeah,
it
it's
worked out
always
for the best.
it'll be a special memory for all of us, a little secret one, which is great.
Well, again, Haley, I just want to say thank you so much. And to our listeners and watchers, till next time. Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.
You have been listening to the Horror Hour.